Archaeologists have unearthed more ancient ruins.
Archaeologists announced they had unearthed the oldest Homo sapien remains.
Archaeologists have uncovered human remains.
The vast pottery army, which is slowly being unearthed.
You won't believe what was just discovered in Morocco. 90,000-year-old footprints.
This is an ancient site. They call it Morocco's Stonehenge. We're right outside. We're based out of Asila right now.
These ancient tracks are now considered to be among the best preserved trackways ever found.
They're considered to be the oldest banking systems in the world.
Morocco, known for its markets, the stunning Atlas Mountains, and the lively city of Marrakech, has just added another find to its list of attractions.
Two babies from ancient South American burial mounds have been discovered wearing helmets made from the skulls of other infants.
From the Roman ruins of Volubilis to the Caves of Hercules, Morocco has much more to offer, so let us have a look at some of the greatest archaeological finds of all time, in Morocco or otherwise. Number 1, 90,000-year-old human footprint in Morocco. Morocco has just delivered the biggest plot twist in human history. While casually strolling along the beach, scientists accidentally stumbled upon a 90,000-year-old human footprint site. In 2022, Mounsef Sadrati and his team were out researching and exploring beaches near North Africa's northern tip. This is when they found a rock that looked a bit unusual, but it was only after further investigation that they found out it was no rock, but a footprint. The thing is that they didn't just find one footprint, they kept finding more. We're talking about 2 trails with 85 footprints made by at least 5 early modern humans. The group was likely walking along the beach, maybe looking for food or simply traveling. The different sizes of the footprints were that of a varied group, including one notably tall person, estimated to be about 6 feet 2 inches tall. And they used some top-notch dating techniques to find out these tracks were made about 90,000 years ago, during the last ice age when it was probably too cold for beachwear. The footprints were well preserved because the beach was on a rocky platform with clay. This site is actually the only known human trackway from the Pleistocene or Pliocene era in North Africa. Number 2. Ruins of an ancient port city. Archaeologists also found some ancient ruins near Morocco's capital, and they're starting to reveal the secrets of what was once a port city.
It lasted 6 centuries and was a port city open to the Mediterranean trade.
It turns out to be a lively waterfront town, complete with thermal baths and a working-class neighborhood. This site is huge, covering about 1.2 square miles, and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. To give you an idea of its size, it's almost 5 times bigger than Pompeii. The Phoenicians originally settled the area and later became a major Roman outpost from the 2nd to the 5th century. They've even found bricks with Neo-Punic inscriptions, which are like graffiti from before the Romans showed up. Number 3. Oldest human remains. Found in Morocco. Fossils were discovered in Morocco are now considered the oldest known remains of Homo sapiens.
Archaeologists announced they had unearthed the oldest Homo sapien remains ever discovered.
Until now, the oldest Homo sapiens fossils were thought to be around 195,000 years old. But the Moroccan fossils are around 300,000 years old. They show that early humans had faces similar to ours, although their brains were a bit different. Previously, the oldest Homo sapiens fossils were found in Ethiopia. Researchers found skull bones from 5 individuals who died around the same time at the Jebel Irhoud site in Morocco, where these fossils were found. Number 4. The Rosetta Stone. And then we have the world's oldest translation tool, the Rosetta Stone. It's a 2,200-year-old rock that turned out to be an ancient multilingual instruction manual.
At the top, we've got hieroglyphics, the sacred writing of the priests. In the center, the Demotic script. And at the bottom, we have ancient Greek.
This massive slab, from 196 BCE celebrates the 13-year-old king Ptolemy Phi's first anniversary on the throne. It's in 3 languages with hieroglyphs, cursive Egyptian script, and ancient Greek. It was discovered in 1799 by Napoleon's soldiers while building a fort in Egypt, but it was snagged by the British Museum in 1802. Of course it was. How would the British Museum be built if not for borrowed artifacts? So now Egypt has been hoping to get it back. Number 5. Bathing with the Romans. Volubilis, a city that once bloomed in ancient Rome, was located near Meknes in Morocco. Its peak was under Roman rule by the 1st century AD, and it was once the capital of the province of Mauritania Tingitana.
Thousands of years later in central Morocco, it's still possible to admire what's left of its baths, its mosaics, and its vast mansions.
Spread over 40 hectares, its preserved structures included grand arches, Roman baths, and mosaics that were once the pride of Roman interior design. The city was abandoned by the Romans around 285 AD because they couldn't defend it against local tribes. It continued to be inhabited for centuries, transitioning into an Islamic settlement before being completely abandoned in the 11th century as people moved to cities like Fez and Moulay Idris. Excavations began in the late 19th century and continue today to restore and preserve the site. Volubilis gained UNESCO World Heritage status in 1997. Number 6. Tutankhamun Death Mask. In 1922, Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, and inside he found some of the greatest treasures ever.
This is the mask of Tutankhamun, Egypt's famous boy king.
Inside the tomb, there were over 5,000 items. Among them were the pharaoh's 2 stillborn daughters, who were also laid to rest there. But the real star of the show turned out to be King Tut's death mask. This 300-year-old masterpiece is made of the finest gold. Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves thinks that the face on the mask might have originally belonged to Queen Nefertiti, not King Tut. Yes, you heard that right. Scans of the burial chamber suggest that the tomb might have originally been Nefertiti's. Number 7. The Staffordshire Horde. We all wanted to discover a treasure chest at some point, didn't we? In 2009, Terry Herbert's dream came true. While swinging his metal detector in a field near Hammerwich in Staffordshire, England, he found the Staffordshire Horde. This turned out to be the largest collection of Anglo-Saxon gold and silver ever found, with nearly 4,600 items and fragments weighing in at 5.1 kilograms of gold and 1.4 kilograms of silver. But this isn't just a heap of old metal, it was a stash of ancient warrior gear. The items, though small, are incredibly detailed. Dating back to between 650 and 675 CE, a time of major political and religious shifts in England, most artifacts are military-related. By that I mean there were sword fittings and a gilded helmet. Nobody's quite sure who buried this treasure, but these pieces were clearly worn by elite, top-tier warriors. Number 8. The Cave of Hercules. Not far from Tangier's Cape Spartel is the Caves of Hercules. These caves are known for their local legends.
Oh, this cave, Hercules Cave, is cold and damp here. I can feel the temperature difference, big difference.
It's 2,000 years of history.
Yeah.
One of the most famous tales involves Heracles, who, according to myth, used these very caves as a hideout. The story goes that after completing 10 of his 12 labors, Heracles had to sneak into the garden of the Hesperides to steal some golden apples. Since the garden was supposedly near modern-day Larache, the caves were a perfect place for him to rest before his big heist. Another tale claims that the caves are part of a 24-kilometer-long tunnel that extends beneath the Mediterranean Sea to Gibraltar. Number 9. The Terracotta Army. In March 1974, many locals in China's Shaanxi province discovered some old clay bits. Little did they know, they had just discovered an entire underground army of life-sized terracotta soldiers and horses that had been in the ground for over 2,000 years.
It's a vast pottery army which is slowly being unearthed from the tomb where it's lain for more than 2,000 years.
Since then, over 2,000 warriors and horses have been excavated from 3 different burial pits, with an estimated 6,000 still buried underground. This site, spread over 56 square kilometers, is the largest and most significant tomb site in China, recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and major pits are now easily accessible inside the Emperor Qin Shi Huang's Mausoleum Site Museum. You can see long columns of soldiers reassembled from their shattered pieces. The warriors were buried in battle formations to represent a real army. They are divided into ranks, including infantrymen, archers, generals, cavalrymen, charioteers, officers, and guards of honor. Each warrior is unique, with distinct expressions, clothing, and hairstyles reflecting their specific roles and ranks. Number 10. The Stone Circle of Mur. When people think of gigantic structures, Stonehenge is usually the first thing that comes to mind. But Stonehenge isn't alone. There are plenty of other stone circles scattered across Europe. What might surprise you, though, is that there's a stone circle outside Europe.
This is an ancient site. They call it Morocco Stonehenge. We're right outside. We're based out of Asila right now.
In northern Morocco. Mur might not be as well known, but it's far from insignificant. It was discovered by Westerners in 1830. It's a striking site with 168 surviving stones out of the original 175. Some of these stones are massive. One, called El Uted, stands over 5 meters tall. The entire circle spans about 55 meters in diameter, and in the middle, there's a large barrow. Number 11, the Inverted Tower. Quinta de Regala is a fairy tale estate in Sintra, Portugal. It is known for its blend of Gothic, Moorish, and Renaissance architecture. But the real thing happens underground. Yes, the estate features 2 initiation wells that spiral deep into the earth. We know that wells are usually built to collect water, right? But not these ones. These wells were used in secret initiation rituals tied to the Knights Templar. They were part of a ritual where candidates, blindfolded and holding a sword, would descend 9 flights of stairs, representing the Templar founders. At the bottom, they navigated a dark maze to walk into the light and cross stones in water to a chapel, which completed their initiation. While the Templar initiations are long gone, you can still visit Quinta de Regala and retrace the steps of those historic ceremonies. Number 12. Spiral skeletons. In ancient Mesoamerican cultures like the Maya and the Aztecs, they took their religious sacrifices and funerals very seriously. Archaeologists in Mexico City often dig up bones arranged in ways you can't even imagine, like neck bones stacked in a temple or skulls mounted on racks. But recently, even the experts were caught off guard. While digging under the Pontifical University of Mexico, they discovered something truly baffling: 10 skeletons buried in a spiral formation with their arms linked together. In this 400-year-old grave were the bones of 2 women, 1 man, a toddler, and an infant, all buried together in one ritual. The exact reason for this oddly intimate arrangement remains a mystery. But it kind of looks like the mix of ages might represent different life stages, kind of like they were playing out the entire human experience in one go. Number 13. The Gold Mask. In 1927, a farmer in Sangxingdui, China, accidentally became the world's luckiest amateur archaeologist. This was when he found a gold mine of Bronze Age artifacts. Fast forward to 2021, in an even better discovery, archaeologists found a gold mask. but it was no ordinary mask. This mask was made of 84% gold and weighed just over half a pound. It might have been used as the ultimate fashion statement during some seriously intense sacrificial rituals. And it's about 3,000 years old. Along with this shiny face accessory, the dig also revealed other stuff, such as ivory and jade artifacts and an unopened wooden box. Researchers are still piecing together what all this stuff was used for, but it's believed to be linked to the ancient Shu Han kingdom. While the ancient Shu Han folks might have been big on rituals and mystery boxes, we're just happy they left behind such a great collection for us to look at. Be honest, people. What would you have done if you were the one to find this treasure? Number 14. The Portuguese Fortress. The Portuguese Fortress of El Jadida stands on Morocco's Atlantic coast. It was originally built in the early 16th century and was known as Mazagan until the Portuguese renamed it El Jadida, which means the new in Arabic. The fortress is a classic example of Portuguese military architecture. It has really impressive defensive walls, a moat, and a series of bastions that would make any invader think twice about attempting a breach. One of the fortress's most striking features is the cistern. Built in the early 16th century, it provided a reliable water supply for the Portuguese garrison. It has a vaulted ceiling supported by elegant stone columns, while at the center of the chamber is a reflective pool of water. The water is eerily still, mirroring the vaulted ceiling and columns above. Over the centuries, El Jadida changed hands a few times, with the Portuguese eventually abandoning it in the late 18th century. The city then fell under Moroccan control and gradually evolved into the busy town it is today. Number 15. Grave Stelly of Heeso. What do you think of when you hear the word tombstone? An image of a graveyard may have popped into your mind, or possibly the letters RIP with a corresponding name and date. That's our modern way of remembering the dead. But if we travel back in time to ancient Greece, the scene changes a bit. Instead of the simple headstones we're used to, they had something called grave Stelly. Take the Stelly of Heeso, for instance. This monument was crafted around 400 BCE.
The end of the 5th century BCE, the end of the very brief period that we call the High Classical moment.
The stele features two figures, a standing maid and a seated woman, Heeso. Heeso is shown examining a jewelry box offered by her maid. She is dressed in an elaborate himation over her chiton, with a snood and fancy sandals. She's even seated on a fancy chair with a footrest, signaling her high status. In contrast, her maid is in simpler attire and is standing. Number 16. Remains of the early settlers. In November 2013, scientists found VIPs from Jamestown, the first successful British colony in America.
Archaeologists have uncovered human remains of 4 of the earliest leaders of the English colony that would become America.
After 2 years of detective work, the scientists figured out they belonged to 4 popular men from the early 1600s. Tests confirmed their English origins and high social status, with elevated lead levels indicating their wealth. But this is where things get a bit complicated. Jamestown is now at risk from rising sea levels. So in a race against time, archaeologists are scrambling to preserve what's left before it all gets washed away. And there's one final mystery. Captain Archer's coffin contained a sealed silver box containing what might be bone shards and a tiny vial of holy water. The box's secrets are still locked up tighter than a drum, and no one knows what the letter M on it stands for or why it's there. Number 17. Oldest cave art in Sulawesi. As for the oldest cave art, Scientists have just found the oldest known piece of figurative cave art, and it's in Indonesia. It's a 51,200-year-old masterpiece featuring a wild pig and 3 human-like figures. This ancient artwork is about 5,000 years older than the previous record holder. Experts say it's the oldest proof of storytelling we've got. Apparently, our ancestors were not just good at hunting and gathering, but also at coming up with elaborate stories. Looks like art and humans go hand in hand from the start of times. Number 18. Cavemen paintings or proof of aliens. Now, what if I told you that scientists have found proof of aliens and showed you ancient cave paintings that back up this claim? Tassili Najer is a vast sandstone wonderland north of Janet in Algeria. This place has been home to human creativity for over 10,000 years, with its rock art that makes the Sistine Chapel look like a doodle on a lunch napkin. Back in the 1950s, archaeologist Henri Lotte had his mind blown by what he saw there. Some of the art features here look like Martian figures. Theories have ranged from ancient alien encounters to hallucinogenic rituals, but the most believable guess is that these were just tribal masks and ritual garb. Number 19. Helmets made from children's skulls. Archaeologists also found an ancient South American fashion trend that's really making headlines, or should we say, skull lines. They found 2 babies buried with helmets made from other kids' skulls.
It's made of children's skulls. According to the new study, 2 babies from ancient South American burial mounds have been discovered wearing helmets made from the skulls of other infants.
These real-life baby skull helmets date back to around 100 BC. Between 2014 and 2016, on Ecuador's coast, a bunch of ancient burial mounds were excavated. Among the usual artifacts and shells, 2 infants with some seriously creepy headgear. It seems these helmets weren't just for show, they probably still had some flesh on them. But what was the need for these helmets? No one really knows. Your guess is as good as ours. Number 20. Ice Maidens. The Ice Maiden, or the Scythian-Siberian noblewoman, is kind of like the frozen princess of the Altai Mountains, except she was real. She was discovered in 1993 by a Russian archaeologist. It was a coffin made from a single giant larch tree, and inside it, a young woman who looked like she'd just had the world's longest nap. Her tattoos, featuring horned creatures, were still perfectly intact. The Ice Maiden was found in a burial site that was frozen solid. Looks like her people were experts at preserving their dead. Number 21. Libella Churches. When you're tired of conventional real estate, why not just carve your entire house out of a mountain? This is essentially what the Libella Churches are. Libella doesn't believe in building on top of the land. It says, build the land. This is how the 11 rock-hewn churches of Libella were born. These churches are carved from solid rock, and each church has its own architectural adventure. For example, the Church of St. George looks like someone plopped a giant stone mushroom cap on the ground and decided this is where service will be. These churches were built to be a kind of heaven on earth, because apparently flying to Jerusalem was a bit too mainstream. Number 22. Story of Sutton Hoo. In 1939, an archaeologist named Basil Brown was working on Edith Pretty's estate in Suffolk, England. While digging through an ancient burial mound at Sutton Hoo, Brown found a ship that had been lying around for over 1,000 years. And not just any ship, a massive 86-foot-long vessel packed with a treasure trove of Anglo-Saxon goodies. We're talking Byzantine silverware, gold jewelry, fancy feasting sets, luxurious textiles, and gold accessories studded with garnets. Sadly, the human remains that might have been there didn't make it through the acid soil, but the stuff they left behind. Absolutely spectacular. Number 23, the oldest banks in the world. And up next, we have the Igouda granaries in Morocco. They're considered the world's oldest bank. These structures date back to the 13th century, and some historians think they might be even older.
Considered to be the oldest banking systems in the world, dating back to who knows when.
The Igouda granaries were created by the Amazigh people, who settled in Morocco more than 4,000 years ago. Each Amazigh family had its own granary where they stored everything from documents and weapons to food and jewelry. Now, some of these granaries were large enough to double as shelters during times of conflict. They even had space for cats to keep the mice away from the valuables. One of the oldest and largest granaries is over 700 years old. Number 24, stone calendar. And then there's a stone disc with intricate carvings and a weight of 50,000 pounds. But what could it have been used for? The Aztec calendar stone, or Piedra del Sol, is an artifact created between 1502 and 1520. Instead, it was more like the Aztec version of a high-stakes sacrificial altar.
A museum in Mexico City looking at what is perhaps their most famous object.
The stone is covered in all kinds of intricate hieroglyphic carvings that show off the Aztec solar year. The stone features a central image of the sun god Tonatiuh, with a face marked by a knife-like tongue and hands holding human hearts. Around this figure are various symbols of Aztec cosmology. You can see the 4 previous eras of creation represented by squares showing the cycle of destruction and rebirth. The first ring around Tonatiuh has symbols for the 20 days of the Aztec month, each tied to specific deities and directions. The Tonapohualli is a 260-day ritual calendar used for religious ceremonies. Every 52 years, these 2 calendars align, marking a significant cycle in Aztec culture. Number 25. World's oldest jewelry. Archaeologists in Morocco also disclosed what might be the world's oldest jewel, a collection of perforated seashells dating back an astonishing 150,000 years.
Churches in Morocco unveiled the oldest jewelry dating back between 142,000 and 150,000 years.
These ancient shells, which were likely strung into necklaces or bracelets, were found in the Bismoon cave near Essaouira. According to researcher Bouzuga, these shells are between 142,000 and 150,000 years old. And Morocco's not just about ancient jewelry. Bouzuga reminded us that it's also home to some of the oldest Homo sapiens remains discovered so far, 5 individuals who lived around 315,000 years ago. That's all for today, folks. These were some of the greatest archaeological finds of modern history. Which one was your favorite? Was it the world's oldest jewelry, the proof of ancient aliens, or the fact that the oldest human remains were found in Morocco? Comment down below and let us know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already.